Good morning, guys. Okay, today we are going over creating your own proportional representations. So we've done a lot with proportions, with equations, tables, and graphs. So now we're going to take it a step further and you're going to actually create your own representations for a situation that you come up with. Okay, so for my situation, what I'm going to do is for every 5 classrooms, so I'm thinking about like my hallway at school. For every 5 classrooms, to me it's easier to type, there are 60 students. Notice what I'm doing here, it cannot be 1, okay? I want you to work with a bigger rate than a unit rate so that we can calculate a unit rate from this. So for every 5 classrooms, let me undo that, there are 60 students. Once you have that situation, and you can think of any relationship, it could be chips in bags, it could be dogs in houses, it could be people in houses. So it can be anything that you want to talk about. Do something that relates to you, that you are interested in, okay? From here, we're going to do our y value divided by our x value to get our k, which is our constant of proportionality. In this situation, the thing that comes first that's independent is classrooms. That comes first, and the number of students that can fit in those classrooms is dependent on the number of classrooms. So I'm going to go ahead and label that this is my x value over here, and this is my y value. Yours might be different depending on how you word it. So you need to think about that your x is your independent value, and it comes first usually. Like it's the thing that has to happen first. Your y value is going to be the dependent value, and it changes depending on the other value. So you'll have to think through that based on what your situation is. So for me, my y divided by x would be 60 divided by 5. And what it's going to equal is 12. So 12 is my k, or my constant of proportionality. And so what that does, so my unit rate is that for every 1 classroom, there are 12 students. So for every 1 classroom, there are 12 students. And so you see I'm getting that information from my constant of proportionality. And it's also my unit rate. So I want you to see how those two things are related. Your constant of proportionality is your unit rate. It's also the slope of the line that, like when you put it on the graph, it's going to be your slope. It's also called your constant rate of change. Okay, so you have a lot of vocabulary words that relate to that. So I'm going to go ahead and type out all the vocabulary words that are related to this. You're going to hear it called constant of proportionality, which is usually represented with K. You might hear it be called the unit rate. That's also the same thing, right? Per 1. Let me write that down. Also, per 1. You might also hear it be called the slope, which is represented with the variable m in an equation. And it's also called the constant rate of change. How the relationship is changing per unit. Okay, so those are all the vocabulary words you might hear when talking about this change that you see in these equations. So my equation, since my k value is 12, my equation would be y equals 12x. And what I can do with that equation, I can do so much. I can figure out so much just from that equation. When I plug in an X value, like let's say I plug in a 1 for X, remember X is my classrooms. If I say 12 times 1 classroom, I'm going to end up with 12 students. 12 times 2 classrooms would give me 24 students. So see how as my X value is changing, that's also changing my Y value when I'm plugging numbers into that equation. Okay. So an equation is kind of like a base of like a puzzle where you put in different pieces and it gives you something else. Now, using that equation, I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste that over to our next slide so that we can use this to help us. I like to fill out a table first. It's up to you, whatever you want to fill in first, but to me, a table gives me the points that I'm going to put on my graph. So that's how I'm going to teach it today. So my X we've already determined is our classrooms. Our Y is our number of students. Now, I do want to ask you this. What if I have no classrooms? Could I possibly have students? I mean, in a real life situation, yes. But if I'm plugging this into my equation, 12 times 0 would equal 0. So when I have 0 classrooms, I can hold 0 students. When I have 1 classroom, if I plug that into my equation, 12 times 1 classroom is going to give me 12 students. Okay, and you see how our table is changing as we're increasing that value. 2 classrooms, 12 times 2 would be 24. 12 times 3 classrooms would be 36. Okay, and so on. Just for the sake of video time, I'm not going to go through. You can see that my X value is increasing by 1. My Y value is increasing by 12. I could take any of these Y values divided by X and get that K, that constant of proportionality. So like 36 divided by 3 would give me 12. It's going to bring me back to that unit rate, that constant rate of change. All right, so now I'm going to just kind of review with you how to set up a graph. We want to label our x-axis with what we're talking about, classrooms, and our y-axis is talking about students. And we can create a scale of anything, really. To me, the easiest thing is pick the numbers you have. You know, you don't have to go crazy and go by 10s or 20s and be, exact that way. Go by what you have, and that way your points are going to line up exactly where your axes cross, okay? So I have 1. You can always start with 0 also. I have 2. I have 3. And you can, as I said before, you can go on and do the rest. So here's what I'm talking about for my Y scale. Some people would want to go by 10s, 20s, 30s. Your points are going to be kind of estimated then. To me, I would almost rather go by exact. So like 12, 24, 36. That's going to make me land on exactly that intersection of X line and Y line. So like 0, 0, I would put a point here. That's what this data is telling us. 0 as our X value and 0 as our Y value. The next one would be 1 is our X value and 12 is our Y value. So 1 classroom is 12 students. 2 classrooms is 24 students. 3 classrooms is 36 students. So it's creating a proportional relationship. It goes through, starts at 0, 0, and it's going to go up in a straight line. Obviously, that's not straight, but you know what I'm saying. So the cool thing, this is the part where, to me, it all connects together. We've learned how to graph ordered pairs. Like this point on our graph is 336. That's not just a point, though. It's not just 2 random numbers that you just throw on there and it doesn't mean anything. When you have a graph like this that gives you the X values and the Y values, this data, this point is telling us so much information. It's telling me that in 3 classrooms, I can have 36 students. Okay? Those aren't just numbers, they're values. They are telling us something about our data. All right, so create your own data, have fun with it. Fill out your entire table, and that's all you have to graph. Okay, you don't have to go all the way out. Just graph what you get in your table. As always, if you have any questions, inbox me, email me. Have a great day.